Negative thought loops are like those annoying pop-up ads on your phone. You never invited them, they show up without permission, and for some reason they always know the worst time to appear. They usually start quietly, almost politely, like a whisper you don't even notice. Maybe you made a tiny mistake. Maybe someone looked at you weird. Maybe your text got delivered but not replied to, and boom, your brain is like, let's overthink this until it becomes a full-blown disaster movie. Suddenly, you're not just wondering if you messed up, you're calculating how this one tiny moment will ruin the rest of your life, your career, your friendships, your confidence, and possibly the entire US economy. Your mind starts exaggerating everything like it's auditioning for a dramatic Netflix series. A small problem becomes an apocalypse, a minor discomfort becomes a catastrophe, and one awkward interaction turns into, I am clearly unlovable. And the worst part? It all happens fast, like express shipping straight to Stress City. These loops don't politely knock on your mental door either. They sneak in when you're tired, stressed, or just peacefully minding your own business. Your brain notices something small, gets bored, and decides to run a full-scale internal investigation for absolutely no reason. It's like your inner critic suddenly becomes the FBI, the CIA, and your high school principal, all teaming up to interrogate you about a situation that wasn't even a problem to begin with. And because these loops usually operate in your subconscious, you don't realize how deep you've spiraled until you catch yourself staring at the ceiling like a philosopher, questioning the meaning of life, simply because you sent an email without a smiley face. Once the loop begins, it magnifies everything. A normal human mistake becomes evidence that you're failing at life. A slight inconvenience becomes a sign the universe is plotting against you. And because your brain is an expert at exaggerating, you start believing it. It's almost like having a tiny dramatic roommate in your head whose only job is to create chaos. And it's efficient too. It doesn't just ruin your mood, it goes for the big targets, your ability to make decisions and your self-esteem. Decision-making becomes impossible because you're stuck thinking of every catastrophic scenario that might happen. Want to send a message? But what if they misunderstand? Want to start something new? But what if I fail publicly and everyone watches? Want to take even the smallest action? But what if it goes wrong and I look ridiculous? Congratulations! Your brain has turned everyday life into a psychological obstacle course. And then comes the self-esteem erosion, the quiet assassin of confidence. When those negative thoughts keep playing on repeat, you start believing them like they're facts. It's like your brain takes one tiny mistake, prints it on a giant billboard, and forces you to stare at it every day. Soon, you don't trust yourself the way you used to. You second-guess every choice. You apologize too much. You worry about disappointing people who aren't even thinking about you. Your self-worth starts shrinking not because you're not capable, but because you've been listening to a mental soundtrack that keeps telling you you're not enough. And here's the funny part. If someone else talked to you the way your thoughts talk to you, you'd block them instantly. You'd be like, nope, not in my life. But because it's coming from inside your head, it feels true. That's the trick. Negative loops don't show up yelling. They whisper slowly until their nonsense feels believable. They're like background noise. You don't notice it until it's controlling the vibe of the entire room. But the truth is, these loops are not signs that you're weak, broken, or dramatic. They're just old mental habits that got really good at their job. And just like any habit, they can be changed. When you start noticing the loop in real time, you take away its power. When you question your thoughts instead of obeying them, you break the cycle. And when you remind yourself that not every feeling is a fact, you begin to reclaim control. So, the next time your brain tries to drag you into a negative spiral, imagine it like an over-caffeinated friend who thinks everything is urgent and everything is the end of the world. Smile at it, breathe, and say, relax, it's not that deep. And trust me, most of the time, it really isn't.
Your brain's bias toward negativity is basically the world's oldest software bug, except instead of crashing your computer, it crashes your mood. And here's the funny and annoying truth. Your brain isn't trying to make you miserable. It's just stuck in survival mode, a mode created thousands of years ago when humans had to worry about lions, poisonous berries, and accidentally becoming someone else's dinner. Back then, noticing danger kept you alive. Today, the closest thing you're running from is a group chat, an unflattering photo, or the sound of your boss saying, "Can we talk?" But your brain doesn't know the difference. It still thinks you're one wrong move away from extinction, so it focuses on anything that might be a threat. A weird tone in a text, an awkward silence, a minor mistake, and treats it like it's an emergency. Imagine your brain as a paranoid security guard who keeps hitting the alarm button for absolutely everything, including noises that turn out to be the wind. This negativity bias shows up everywhere. You could have 9 good things happen today. Someone complimented your shirt, your coffee was perfect, the traffic lights loved you, but your brain will ignore all of that and zoom in on the one moment where you stumbled over your words and said, "You too," when the waiter said, "Enjoy your meal." Suddenly, that one moment becomes the highlight of your mental playlist, playing on repeat like a catchy but depressing song you didn't choose. It's not because you're dramatic, it's because your brain is literally wired to pay more attention to bad things than good ones. 1,000 years ago, this wiring helped your ancestors survive. Today, it mostly helps you overthink your entire existence at 2 a.m. But here's the twist. Once you understand that this negativity bias is basically outdated survival software, you can start choosing how to react to it. Awareness is like finally finding the instruction manual for your own brain. When you catch yourself spiraling into negative interpretations, assuming the worst, jumping to conclusions, preparing for imaginary disasters, you can pause and go, okay, this is just my caveman brain trying to protect me from a problem that doesn't exist. It's like telling your overprotective inner caveman, relax, we're not fighting bears anymore, we're just dealing with an email. Suddenly, the fear loses its power because you realize it's not truth, it's instinct, old instinct. Outdated instinct that has no idea how modern life works. And once you see the bias for what it is, you can redirect it. Instead of letting your brain automatically assign negative meaning to everything, you can push it toward neutral or even positive interpretations. For example, someone didn't reply. Instead of, "They hate me," try, "They're probably busy living their life." You made a mistake. Instead of, "I'm a failure," try, "I'm human, and humans mess up. Big deal." You didn't get instant results? Instead of, "I'm not good enough," try, "Growth takes time, and I'm figuring it out." Redirecting your thoughts isn't pretending everything is perfect, it's giving your brain a reality check so it stops acting like everything is a threat. Think of it like retraining an overexcited dog. Your thoughts might still run toward the worst-case scenario at first, but when you gently redirect them enough times, they eventually stop sprinting into chaos. Your brain isn't your enemy, it's just outdated. It's been trying to protect you using old methods that worked in the Stone Age but make a mess in the Wi-Fi age. Awareness is the upgrade. Once you see the bias, you stop taking it personally. You stop treating every negative thought like a fact, and you start to feel lighter, calmer, and more in control. And here's the best part, your brain is trainable. It can learn to notice good things more often. It can learn to pause before assuming the worst. It can learn to interpret things in a way that supports your happiness rather than sabotaging it. Every time you redirect your thoughts, you're basically saying, "Hey, brain, thanks for trying to keep me safe, but we're not dodging predators anymore. We're just trying to live without overthinking ourselves into exhaustion." And surprisingly, your brain listens. With practice, it stops sounding like an anxiety-filled survival machine and starts sounding more like a supportive friend. So the next time your mind jumps to a negative conclusion, "I messed up, they're judging me, something bad is happening," remember, that's not truth. That's just prehistoric programming. Smile at it, take a breath, and redirect. You're not fighting danger. You're just updating your mental software one thought at a time. And trust me, the upgrade feels way better than the default settings.
Self-talk is basically the weather system inside your mind. Whatever you say to yourself becomes the forecast for your entire day. If your inner voice wakes up screaming, "I can't do this," congratulations, you've just summoned a Category 5 emotional hurricane before breakfast.
Your brain hears that phrase, panics like a rookie firefighter, and immediately starts dumping stress hormones into your system as if you're being chased by a wild bear instead of, trying to answer an email. And because your brain believes everything you say, even the dramatic nonsense, "I can't" becomes a signal that danger is coming, pressure is rising, and you should prepare for disaster, which is wild because sometimes the disaster is just parallel parking or folding laundry. But switch that phrase to "I'll try," and your brain suddenly relaxes like it just entered a spa. Instead of hitting the panic button, your neurons go, "Oh, we're learning something? Cool, fire up the curiosity circuits." It stops sending out stress alerts and starts activating the parts of your brain that help you problem solve, explore, and figure things out. "I'll try" doesn't demand perfection. It creates space. It says, "Hey, we're doing our best. Let's see what happens." And your brain loves that. It's like giving your internal system permission to breathe, experiment, and maybe even enjoy the experience. It's amazing how two tiny words can turn your brain from a doomsday machine into a curious, optimistic little scientist. Your self-talk literally sets the mood for everything. Say, "I'm terrible at this," and your brain goes, "Oh, we're quitting. Okay, shutting down all motivation. Please hold." Say, "I'm learning," and your brain lights up like Times Square at night. It starts searching for solutions, ideas, possibilities, because now it believes the situation is workable, not hopeless. Imagine your brain as a personal assistant who takes your tone very seriously. If you tell it "we're doomed," it cancels all your appointments, orders 3 emotional breakdowns, and starts packing an emergency bag. But if you say, "let's give it a shot," it rolls up its sleeves, grabs a notebook, and says, "All right, boss, let's figure this out." What we rarely notice is that self-talk isn't just a motivational gimmick, it chemically changes what happens inside your body. Negative phrases release cortisol, adrenaline, and all the stress chemicals that make you feel tense, overwhelmed, and exhausted before you even start. Positive or neutral phrases, on the other hand, trigger dopamine and other feel-good, problem-solving, confidence-building chemistry. You're not just thinking positively, you're literally shifting your brain's operating system from survival mode to growth mode. One phrase makes your body think it's in danger, the other makes your body think you're capable. And the wild part is, most of our negative self-talk doesn't even come from logic. It's just old scripts we've repeated for years, sometimes since childhood. "I can't," "I always mess up," "I'm not good at this," "Why am I like this?" These lines pop up like annoying ads, except instead of promoting shampoo, they're promoting anxiety. But once you start noticing them, you get the power to rewrite them. You don't have to replace everything with sunshine and rainbows, you just upgrade the script. You go from "I suck at this" to "I'm learning." From "I failed" to "I'll try again." From "this is too hard" to "this is new for me, but I'll figure it out." These tiny shifts don't sound like much, but to your brain, they're the difference between panic and progress. Think about kids learning to ride a bike. If they sat there saying, "I can't do this," they'd never get off the sidewalk. But most of them say something closer to, "Let me try," even if they're wobbling like a penguin on roller skates. And because they keep trying, their brain keeps learning, adjusting, improving. Adults forget this. We think we need to be perfect right away. But perfection shuts down learning, and learning is literally built on trying. So imagine your inner voice like a coach. Not a mean army sergeant, not a sarcastic critic, but a real coach. Someone who pushes you but also believes in you. Someone who says, "Let's try, you got this, one step at a time," instead of, "Wow, you're hopeless." The more you talk to yourself like that, the more your mind becomes a place where growth actually happens. And when your brain feels supported instead of threatened, everything becomes easier. Decisions, challenges, confidence, even simple everyday tasks. Self-talk isn't just chatter, it's the remote control for your emotional climate. It can create storms or sunshine, chaos or clarity, dread or determination. So the next time your brain says, "I can't," pause, breathe, and upgrade it to "I'll try." It's small, it's simple, it's gentle, and it's powerful enough to change the whole atmosphere inside your mind.
Mindset influences behavior the same way the thermostat influences the temperature in your house. You don't always notice it, but it's controlling everything. When you're stuck in a pessimistic mindset, your brain becomes this overly dramatic fortune teller predicting disaster at every corner. You think about trying something new, and your mind immediately jumps in like, "Bad idea, buddy. You'll embarrass yourself, ruin your life, and probably trip over your own feet on the way." And because your brain sounds so confident and so dramatic, you start believing it. Pessimism convinces you that every risk is basically skydiving without a parachute. So you avoid taking action, avoid trying, avoid stepping outside your comfort zone, not because you're lazy, but because your brain is acting like an overprotective parent who locks the doors at 8 p.m. and thinks everything fun leads to doom. Meanwhile, optimism is like having a hype man living in your head. It's not about pretending everything is perfect or skipping through life like a Disney character. It's about believing that maybe, just maybe, things won't fall apart the moment you try. Optimism says, hey, give it a shot. Worst case, you learn something. Best case, you surprise yourself. This mindset doesn't erase fear, but it pushes you to act anyway. When you take action, even tiny steps, you start building evidence that you're capable, that you survive awkward moments, that you learn from mistakes, and that the world doesn't end just because something didn't go perfectly. Every action becomes a micro-confidence boost. It's like your brain starts collecting receipts saying, see, you can actually do stuff. And with every receipt, confidence grows. The tricky part is that both mindsets feed themselves. Pessimism creates inaction, and inaction creates more pessimism, because you never get a chance to prove your fears wrong. It's like refusing to get into the pool because you know the water is freezing, but because you never try, you never realize it's actually warm. Optimism works the opposite way. It creates action, the action builds experiences, and those experiences build confidence, which makes future action easier. It's like saying, I'm not sure if I can do this, but I'll find out. And then discovering that the world didn't collapse when you stepped forward. And let's be honest, pessimism doesn't make you safer. It mostly just makes you miss opportunities. It convinces you not to apply for the job, not to start the project, not to talk to the person, not to take the class, all because your brain is running a highlight reel of your imaginary failures. It's like having a movie trailer in your head titled, "Everything Goes Wrong," based on absolutely nothing. Optimism, on the other hand, invites you to see possibilities. It doesn't promise success, but it gives you permission to try. And trying is the only road that ever leads anywhere. Nobody builds confidence by sitting on the sidelines, hoping life gets easier. You build it by getting in the game, messing up, learning, and growing. The funny part? Optimists aren't fearless. They just don't let fear dictate their choices. They feel it, acknowledge it, and move anyway, usually thinking, well, this might go badly, but let's find out. Meanwhile, pessimists rehearse the worst-case scenarios so many times that they exhaust themselves before even taking a step. Optimism says, let's see what happens. Pessimism says, let's not even try because something might happen. One mindset moves you forward, the other keeps you stuck. And you can feel the difference in your life. The truth is, mindset is a pair of glasses you wear without realizing it. Through pessimistic glasses, everything looks bigger, scarier, riskier, and more personal. Through optimistic glasses, everything looks a little more workable, a little more open, a little more worth trying. Same world, completely different experience. And the best part? You get to choose which pair you wear. You don't have to become a rainbows and unicorns optimist. You just need a mindset that leans toward possible instead of pointless. Because when you shift your mindset even a little, your behavior shifts with it. You stop freezing. You start trying. You take steps. And those steps, awkward, tiny, imperfect, build the type of confidence that pessimism could never give you. So if you ever catch yourself thinking, why bother, it probably won't work, try flipping the script to, what if it does work? That one question has launched careers, relationships, businesses, and entire new versions of people. Mindset isn't magic, but it's the spark that makes everything else possible.
Neuroscience confirms mindset plasticity, which is just a fancy scientific way of saying your brain is not a stubborn old grandpa stuck in its ways. It can change, adapt, upgrade, and even rewrite its own wiring. And it does it way faster than most people think. You don't need decades, a spiritual retreat in the mountains, or a lightning bolt from the universe to shift your mindset. All it really takes is consistent positive focus over a few weeks. Yep, weeks, not years. Your brain is basically the world's most powerful editing software. It just needs you to stop hitting the negative filter button and start selecting something brighter. The cool part? Your brain is constantly rewiring itself based on whatever you repeatedly think, feel, and focus on. If you wake up every day telling yourself, life is awful, your brain goes, copy that. Let's strengthen the life is awful neural pathways. And then it happily builds a mental superhighway that makes pessimism your default setting. It's not doing this to annoy you, it's trying to be helpful. It's like your brain saying, you think this a lot, so I'll make it easier for you to think it again. But the same mechanism works in the opposite direction. If you consistently shift your focus toward what's working, what's improving, what's possible, your brain starts strengthening those pathways instead. And guess what? Those pathways can grow fast when you're consistent. Think of your brain like a trail through the woods. Negative thoughts are the path you've walked 1,000 times, so it's wide, smooth, and easy. Positive thoughts might start as a barely visible dirt track, narrow, awkward, and full of branches. But every time you choose to focus on something positive, you take another step down that new path. After a few weeks, you've walked it so many times that the old trail starts to fade, and the new one becomes your main route. That's neuroplasticity. It's basically your brain saying, okay, noted, we're doing this now. And no, this isn't toxic positivity or pretending everything is sunshine and lemonade. It's about intentionally directing your attention toward thoughts that help you grow instead of thoughts that keep you stuck. When you consistently practice gratitude, your brain builds neural circuits that help you notice more good things. When you practice self-compassion, your brain strengthens pathways that reduce fear and shame. When you focus on solutions instead of repeating problems, your brain rewires itself to stay calm, creative, and resourceful. Over time, these circuits become stronger, faster, and more automatic, like muscle memory but for your mindset. Scientists have literally watched these changes happen in brain scans. People practice daily positive focus for a few weeks and boom! New neural connections show up like someone installed upgraded wiring in their head. Stress circuits calm down, problem-solving circuits fire up, emotional balance improves, and the person starts acting and feeling different, not because life magically changed, because their brain did. The coolest part is how quietly it happens. You don't sit there thinking, yes, I can feel my neurons changing. You just realize one day that you bounce back faster, you don't spiral as easily, you see possibilities instead of doom, and you're nicer to yourself without even trying. And let's be real, your brain loves efficiency. So when you show it consistent positive focus, it doesn't fight you. It adapts quickly because it wants to support whatever pattern you repeat most. If negativity has been the default playlist, it's only because that's the track you've been playing. But you can absolutely switch the playlist. And once you start playing a new one consistently, your brain goes, oh, this is the vibe now. Cool, let me reinforce that for you. The best part? You don't need perfection. You don't need to feel positive 24/7. You just need consistency. Smaller moments of positive focus repeated throughout your week. 5 minutes a day of gratitude, a few minutes of reframing a negative thought, practicing kindness toward yourself, noticing one good thing that happened. That's enough to start reshaping your neural pathways. And as those new pathways grow stronger, the old ones weaken. That old mental habit of expecting the worst slowly loses its power. The inner critic gets quieter. The drama reduces. The emotional storms don't last as long. So if you ever feel stuck with the same old mindset, remember, your brain is not a concrete statue. It's more like Play-Doh with Wi-Fi. It changes based on what you feed it, what you repeat, and what you focus on. And the beauty is, you never have to wait years to feel the shift. You just have to stay consistent for a few weeks. Your brain will take it from there.